And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this fine Tuesday. We have a lot to discuss on today's show. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And then for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. So, with that, let's kind of get into what the show is going to be about for today. So we're going to go through the injury report in the first part of the show because there were some notable injuries. Obviously, the big one, probably the biggest one, was Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings getting placed on IR with a hamstring injury. So he's going to miss the next 4 games. So we'll get into that and some of the other injuries around the league. Then we are going to go into recapping the Monday night game between the Packers and the Raiders. Raiders picking up a 17-13 win over the Packers. So we'll get into that in the second part of the show. Then in the third part of the show, we're going to get into what's wrong with the New England Patriots. We'll talk about their struggles from the start of the season, and kind of give like an overview on what's been going on there, at least from my perspective. That'll be in the third part of the show, and then the final part of the show we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. They picked up a big win on Sunday against the Cardinals to get themselves back on track, and we'll talk about whether or not they're back, and is this a winning streak is in the works with this win now for the Bengals. So that's basically the rundown for today's show. So let's get into the first part of the show, which is talking about the injuries from Sunday, because there was a lot of them. We had star players getting hurt, and guys are going to be out for some games. So obviously the biggest one is Justin Jefferson. On Sunday against the Chiefs, he suffered his hamstring injury, and he missed the final, I think it was like 21, 22, 23, the final 23 snaps of, or the Vikings' final 23 snaps of the game. He really actually had a quiet game against the Chiefs. The Chiefs kind of did a great job of, containing him. Also because the Vikings' offensive line was also very bad on Sunday as well. But yeah, he had a quiet game, and he ended up getting hurt. And listen, the Vikings right now 1-4. I mean, they're not going anywhere this year now, especially without Justin Jefferson. I mean, this is a team that struggles to run the football with Alexander Mattison, and obviously they traded for Cam Akers to help them out in the running game. But now with him being out, you still got some playmakers, of course. You got T.J. Hawkinson at tight end, Jordan Addison, the rookie, who had a touchdown on Sunday, and you also have KJ Osborne, who's a decent receiver as well. But I mean, that production is not going to get replaced with Justin Jefferson being out, and especially now when you have a team that's heading in the direction that they're heading in. I mean, they might start trading pieces. I mean, you talk about Kirk Cousins. His name's been floated around in trade rumors. And listen, I think he could go to a team that needs a quarterback, and he could be good. I think he's a solid quarterback. I mean, the Vikings, it looks like they want to move in a different direction. It doesn't seem like they are prioritizing trying to bring him back. So I think they're going to try to maybe tank and get a quarterback in the upcoming draft. I mean, I think that's what's going to end up happening. And it's just crazy how the Vikings last year, I think they were 11-0 in one-score games, and this year they're 1-4. All their games are one-score games. Because they lost. I know they lost to the Eagles in week 2. Who did they lose to in week 1? They lost to the Chargers. That was another one-score game. They defeated the Panthers by 8. They lost to, and they just lost to the Chiefs. But who did they lose to in week 1? Now I forget off the top of my head. Let's see. Oh, the Buccaneers. That's who it was. They lost. I think they lost to them by 1 score too, or it might have been 2 scores. What was the final score in that game? Was it 20? I think it was. Was it 27-17? I think that score was. It was. Oh no, it was 20-17. Sorry, my mistake. But yeah, all one-score games, and now they're on the complete opposite end of those now. And they almost lost to the Panthers. Almost 2 weeks ago now. So yeah, not good for the Vikings, and now especially losing your best player. I mean, their season is pretty much over at this point. So we'll go into some other notable injuries from this past weekend. So Devon Achane for the Dolphins, he's going to miss some time with the knee injury of his own that he suffered on Sunday against the Giants. So that's a big loss too, because he was really tearing it up, and he was taking over that number one running back spot. It was basically his job. He kind of stole it from Mostert. Mostert kind of slid into that number 2 spot, and now he's going to be out. Now I don't think this is going to affect the Dolphins as much as Justin Jefferson's injury is going to affect the Vikings, because the Dolphins have playmakers all over the place, and they have one loss on the season. It was against the Bills, but the Dolphins, I think, are still going to be okay. Mostert he's dealing with an injury of his own, but they're going to get Jeff Wilson back, so at least that's going to help. You still got Waddle, you still got Tyreek Hill. As long as those guys are still healthy, they're going to be fine. But that's just a huge blow to their offense, because he's been incredible these first few games. I want to go through his stats really quick. And especially from a fantasy perspective too. He's just been unbelievable. So he is likely going to miss a couple of weeks. So I just want to look at his overall stats here. So obviously against the Patriots, he really didn't. He didn't do much. He only had 1 carry for 5 yards. I don't know why they don't have his stats from week 1, but yeah. So from week 2, he had 1 carry for 5 yards. But then the next 3 weeks, he was unbelievable. 18 carries against the Broncos for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against the Bills, he had 8 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a really good game. It's just, the Bills were, ahead for most of the time, so that forced the Dolphins to have to throw it. But he had 2 touchdowns in that game. And then against the Giants, he had a 76-yard touchdown, and he had 151 yards rushing. So he was one of the best running backs in football, really. And, for him to go down, it does hurt the offense, but I think the Dolphins are going to be fine. It's not season ending, so he will be back at some point during the year. But it's just unfortunate, because he's been having a good year, and you don't want to see that happening. So that was the other big injury as well. Arizona Cardinals running back James Conner, he also suffered a knee injury against the Bengals, so he's going to miss multiple weeks. So that just came out recently of him missing time as well. And that's honestly one of the knocks on James Conner is his injuries. The guy's been injured a lot over the course of his career, and he's kind of the engine for that offense. He's the focal point, and once he got hurt, that kind of changed the whole complexion of their game on Sunday. The Cardinals really couldn't get anything going on offense, and the Bengals kind of took over. And we'll get into that game more specifically, and the Bengals in the final part of the show. But that's a big blow for the Cardinals. They weren't going to really do anything this year, but they've been competitive in their games. And they were winning the game on Sunday at one point, and then it just kind of fell apart. So, it's a big loss for the Cardinals, and so he's going to miss the next couple of weeks. But, some of the other notable injuries, so we touched upon it yesterday. Matt Milano, the linebacker for the Buffalo Bills, he's likely out for the season. Broke his leg and also suffered a knee injury. So that's a huge blow. He's one of the best linebackers in football. And the Bills, they just can't catch a break sometimes with these injuries. onto their defense. And then you also had Tre'Davious White. He's going to be out. I think it was an Achilles. So it's just terrible. The Cowboys, we talked about it. They had a lot of injuries on Sunday. Cavante Turpin, who scored their only touchdown, he got hurt. Ankle injury. Leighton Vander Esch with a neck injury. And that was because, Micah Parsons, ran him over. He fell down and Micah Parsons hit into him. Yeah, he got hurt. And then they had some other guys get hurt as well on Sunday, too. So the Cowboys, not only did the 49ers just dismantle them, but they lost some guys on their defense. And they're already out with Trayvon Diggs. So, the hits keep on coming with them, which is just not good. Because, the defense, there's a lot of concerns with that moving forward for the Cowboys. So, yeah, not good on that front. The Lions, Emmanuel Mosley, he suffered a season-ending knee injury. I think it was a torn ACL, so he is out for the year. Again, just unfortunate for the Lions. Injuries just in general are just terrible. And there was a lot of them on Sunday. There really was, and especially to key guys. And I just want to confirm that. Yeah, so he actually, Emmanuel Mosley tore his ACL for the second straight season. I didn't even know. I didn't know that. So that's just really terrible news to see with that. So that was another injury. Tank Dell, he was getting evaluated for a concussion against the Falcons. And he's actually been good for them this year, for the Texans. So hopefully he's able to come back. C.J. Stroud needs him for this week. We did touch upon this, Anthony Richardson. So he suffered an AC joint sprain. So he's going to miss some games to his right throwing shoulder. So, yeah, he's going to miss some games. So Gardner Minshew is going to have to step in and continue to be the quarterback. And Minshew's actually done well in that role. And you know what? I think the Colts are going to be okay. I think they're going to be okay. Because this division right now is still up for grabs. And they're playing well. Jonathan Taylor's back. I think the Colts can, they could tread water with Minshew until Anthony Richardson comes back. Because although he's, he had a concussion and now he's got this injury, Anthony Richardson, in these games that he's played so far, in the beginning of the season, he looks really good. And the Colts, they might have their franchise quarterback. They might. But we gotta, obviously it's a very small sample size, but I don't know. He's got a lot of talent. And you kind of, it just stinks that, injuries are preventing us from seeing more of him. But, so that was another notable injury from this weekend. The Giants, they just dealing with a ton of injuries themselves. Daniel Jones has got a neck injury, but he should be fine. And I forgot a couple years ago, and I was reminded of that yesterday, that he had a neck injury in 2021, and everybody was talking about this could be career-threatening. But this one, it seems like he's going to be okay. Now he's going to be playing the Bills on Sunday night. So if he is playing and with that offensive line, they should just keep him out. And then one last quick injury before we go to break. Offensive tackle, guard, now a tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker for the Jets. Torn Achilles, out for the season. That's just terrible. He's the best offensive lineman on the Jets. And he actually suffered a season-ending injury last year in Denver as well, same as Breece Hall. Breece Hall didn't get hurt in this game, but, that's just, something like that's just weird. But, again, unfortunate, because he has been the Jets' best offensive lineman this year. But now that's the second year in a row, season-ending injury. So, that's basically it when it comes to the injuries. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we are going to recap the Monday night game between the Packers and the Raiders. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.